Okay, welcome back. Today's lesson, I'm going to deal with inequalities. So some of us may have recalled using inequalities before in the past. It's been a long time since I was actually taught this. So I'm going to kind of briefly talk about what inequalities look like. They are the greater than symbol, the less than symbol, the greater than or equal to, and then finally, the less than or equal to. So if you're looking at the greater than symbol, that means the open arrow, it's like Pac-Man, the open arrow goes to the greater number, and when it points to the smaller number. And we represent this with how we've been taught as a dot. In this case, it's going to be opened up. The less than symbol also is an open dot. Now, when it's equal, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, the dot is filled in. Now, also you may see too, and I'm going to put this on the top of the inequalities, you may see it written as using parentheses for the greater than or less than, in brackets for the ones with the greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So let's do a few of these. When I'm looking at x is greater than 4, on my number line, I'm going to look at, 4. Now, for me, I'm also looking at 2 is, since it's a greater than, x is greater than 4, I know that it's going to be an open circle, and the arrow means numbers that are greater than 4. So that means 5, 6, 7, 8, and so forth. So I know it's going to the right. Okay. Now if I look at my number 2, I see the number -5. But if you think about a number line, my 0 is somewhere over here. So what that less than or equal to symbol is showing me is that I've got a closed-in circle, and the arrows pointing to the x means it's the less than, so it's going to negative, what we call negative infinity. And that's what that should look like. My number 3 is x is greater than 5 halves. Now, please, a common mistake on this is 5 halves is the same as 2.5. Do not try to look at that and treat this as like a slope and try to say, okay, I've got a 5 and a 2. No, it's 5 halves. It's 2.5. So what I need to do now is I need to say, okay, it's greater than, so I know it's opened, and it's going to the right because that's what the arrow's showing me. X is greater than 5 halves. So this is what it should look like. Now here's one that we have to pick apart. So take a look at the -8. I've got a -8 and I've got a 5. Somewhere in between here is a 0. Okay? Now, don't make this too complicated. What we want to do is, that means x is between -8 and 5. So how do we write this? Well, the -8 is included, So we put a circle because it's greater, or the symbol is less than or equal to. And now my 5 is going to be an open circle. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just fill it right in. So that means any number that's included -8 goes up to 5. So once we do some basic problems dealing with inequalities, then we're going to throw similar to our solving linear equations. But now we've got, instead of an equal sign, we've got these inequality signs. But we treat this just like an equal sign. So to get rid of this -6, we're going to just add it. So that means x is greater than or equal to -1. So if I go over here to my number line, there's my -1 symbol. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it's a closed circle, and the arrow is going to the right. This is what this looks like. Same thing with here. Now, what I would advise us to do on this one is similar to what we did on solving linear equations or solving equations. Is what I'm going to do is I'm going to put x plus 2. Now, and I'm going to put my -10. I'm just flipping it. When I flip it on the sides, that means my arrow flips as well. Now I can solve it. Now I can say subtract 2. X is greater than -12. So if I go to my number line, there's my -12. Somewhere over here is 0. So all I'm going to do now is since it's greater now, it's an open, and now it's going to the right. Now, number 7, this is when we have multiple x's. So my rule of thumb is look at the one that's more positive. In this case, it is the 10x. So I'm going to subtract 9x on both sides. And I get x minus 11 is greater than -15. Then what I want to do is I'm going to actually add 11 to both sides, which makes that x is greater than -4. So I plot my -4 here on my number line. And then what I want to do is, since it's greater, put an open circle, going to the right. I've got 3 more examples. Four x is greater than 12. Well, this is the same as 4 times x, so what I need to do is do the opposite and divide by 4 on both sides. X is greater than 3. So I go back up here. I'm going to plot now my 3. And now I'm going to show, since it's greater, it's still going to be that open, and it's going to go to the right. Now, finally, another rule I want to introduce with these inequalities is this. Anytime you divide by a negative number, in this case, it's -8. You got your x, then when I divide by -8, 2 negatives make a positive, so it's 3. But when you divide by -8, you flip the sign. So now I'm going to go to my 3, and now instead of being greater than or equal to, it's going to be less than or equal to. And it's going to be a closed circle. Now finally, fractions. This next one's going to be involve a fraction, because when I have 10x is greater than 1 and I divide by 10, that means x is greater than 1 over 10. Well, so on a number line, this is 0 and there are increments of 0.1 to give you to 1. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to that first increment right here and put a circle around it. And then I'm going to make it go all the way to the right. So that circle, so that circle is an open circle. Now I'm going to throw in a bonus one that I just thought about as I was explaining these. Is what happens if you have this right here. Well, my rule of thumb is this. We treat that negative as a -1. Now, when you divide by a -1 now, when you divide by a negative number, that flips the inequality sign to make it greater than or equal to. Two negatives make a positive, so -2 divided by -1 is a +2. So if I go over here to my number line that I'm just creating, I'm going to put in 2, and then what I want to do is I want to make the 2 a closed circle. It's going to the right, just like this. So I hope in conclusion that this helps us with inequalities. And I hope this helps. Thank you very much.